Hello, and welcome to the Inside EVs podcast for January the 15th, 2021. This is episode number 41. Our top stories today: NIO reveals the ET7 flagship sedan, Hyundai Ioniq 5 teased in production design, Renault reveals new EV plans, including the Renault 5 retro concept. I'm Dominic Yoni, Inside EV's editor and Inside EV's forum moderator. Joining us today is Tom Logney, Inside EV's editor and host of the YouTube channel State of Charge with Tom Logney. We also have Martin Lee from the EV News Daily podcast, available on all your usual podcast platforms. And Kyle Connor joins us from Out of Spec Studio family of YouTube channels. He also puts together stupendous videos for the Inside EV's YouTube channel. Go subscribe and tap that bell icon for notifications. Okay, so welcome, gentlemen of the panel and ladies and gentlemen of the audience. We are live today for the first time in a while, and let's see how this works out. Hopefully, we can keep on doing it this way. Okay, so this week, what do we have charging up in our driveways? Tom, I believe you are in a Bmw X5 45e PHEV plug-in hybrid electric vehicle. Yes.
Yep. Yeah, they just dropped it off a day or two ago, so I haven't driven it too much yet. But it's BMW's latest version of the plug-in hybrid for their large SUV, the X5. It has a much bigger battery than previous iterations now. It comes with a 24 kilowatt hour battery, and yeah, which is huge for a plug-in hybrid. You know, it's one of the bigger batteries for any plug-in hybrid available today. And although it's a big, heavy vehicle, of the 24 kilowatt hours, I think you get 21.7 somewhere around there usable. So it's EPA range rated here in the U.S. at 31 miles per charge, which, you know, that's one of those figures that we've been saying for a long time, that plug-in hybrid should have at least 30 miles of range for it really to make sense. And it finally hit that number. So, you know, I've been driving it here. It's in the winter in New Jersey, so you'd expect the range to be lower. But to my surprise, the first full charge and driving I got about 30 miles on the battery before the gas engine turned on. And that was driving at highway speeds. And, you know, so I'm so far so good. Now, when it's in gas mode, it's not an efficient vehicle. It's you know, like this thing weighs 2.5 tons. It weighs 5,000 pounds. So this isn't going to be like the X3 plug-in hybrid I had last year, when I averaged like 60 miles per gallon or something like that with it between the gas and the electric. So I'm not expecting to do that well, but the electric motor has a lot of punch off the line. When it's in all electric mode, it kind of dies. It gives you false hope, because when it's at a standstill, you step on it and you get that electric like jolt, and it throws you back in your seat. But then when you get to like 20 miles an hour, it's like, woo. And then it's like, okay, 20, 25, 30, 35. Now you can
almost BMW, almost.
You can push through the electric like false wall on the accelerator and kick the gas engine on, and then it takes off with a rush. But if you keep it in all electric mode, and it's not too hard to do that with like I said, the accelerator will have this like false wall where you push and then it stops, but you can push through it. If you keep it in the all electric mode, from like 20 to 60, it really doesn't have much. I'm going to do a 0 to 60 run with it, but it's definitely going to be more than 10 seconds. It might be as high as 12 or 13 seconds. So it's not a barn burner in all electric mode, which is disappointing, because I think that gives owners of it the impression that if I bought this in an all electric mode, it would be weak and underpowered, like if it was an all electric version of it. So that's what I'm not happy with about that. But I understand why they did that, because that's going to giving it having a lower powered motor and not feeding it a lot of energy. It's going to give it a greater range. So for what this is meant to be, I think it works. But we'll have my full review out on Inside EVs in about a week.
Awesome. Hey, so do you know offhand what the price differential is between this and like the regular gas version?
I don't know what the difference is. I know this version starts at about 67,000 here in the US. Now, they obviously gave me one that's fully loaded, the M Sport package. I mean, it's got heated armrests, and not just the center armrest. The armrest on the door panel is heated.
Ooh la la.
So yeah, this is like total luxury. I mean, as you would expect for a top of the line BMW. The interiors are beautiful. I really like BMW interiors. They're super comfortable. Everything's laid out nice. There's about 100 buttons altogether. I'm actually going to count them up and include that in my review. There's buttons everywhere. It's like the anti-Tesla. But some people like that. I think we're evolving past that at some point. But super comfortable, great drive, much quieter than my Model 3. Even in gas mode, it's quieter than my Model 3 is driving on the highway. The BMW does a great job, isolating that sound.
Right on. So yeah, 30 miles, but 24 kilowatt hours of battery. So it's got to be. I mean, that 30 miles is going to be, like you said, in even this cold weather, you're getting that. There's 31 miles EPA. Yeah,
31 EPA, and I didn't see exactly when it turned over because it's really seamless and quiet when the car's if you're not looking at the driver's display screen, you don't know when it switched over. I think it happened somewhere around 29 and a half miles or so, and I'm driving 70 miles an hour on the highway. I wasn't, this wasn't, around town and I got 30 miles. No, I had this thing out on the highway, and I haven't checked the specs yet on when it will transition, at what speed you can't drive an all electric mode anymore. But let's just say I kept up with traffic on the New Jersey Turnpike very well, and it stayed in all electric mode.
Nice. Cool. So that I wouldn't be surprised to see that get 40 miles in the summertime.
I think I could definitely, if this was 75 degrees out and I wasn't really hammering it, I'd be shocked if I couldn't get 40 miles all electric.
Well, there's some nice images if you're watching this on YouTube right now. Yeah, it's a pretty decent interior.
And one of the things, Dom, I want to point out is I know a lot of the Inside EV followers are hardcore electric vehicle fans, and they really, are very hard on plug-in hybrids, and they, feel, we see the comments, these are, it's not fish nor fowl. It doesn't do either thing well. It's compromised all the ways, and I get that. And there's a lot of truth to that, but you have to also remember everybody now isn't ready to transition to a full electric vehicle. What are we globally, like a 1 or 2%, adoption rate? There are plenty of people that would never consider an all electric vehicle now. And having these options in the dealerships gets people into cars that plug in, and it starts to normalize those vehicles. And, maybe their next car would be a plug-in hybrid that has 50 or 60 miles of range, or a fully electric, X5 or X3. So there is a place for these in the market. I know we'll probably get some comments, people saying, "Oh, what a waste of time. BMW's lost their way." I don't really agree with that. I think that while this is not the perfect vehicle, I probably wouldn't get one. I understand why people do, and it's a pretty good plug-in hybrid, and it's worth making.
Right. Hey, so Kyle, I understand you don't have anything this week, but you will have you going on a little adventure this weekend.
Right. Well, I have a Corvette, but it's not powered by electricity, obviously, but it is pretty neat. So it does good skids. Anyway, I have a adventure. We're going to leave tomorrow morning. We're going to take the Model 3. We just moved to Colorado, and we are going to see what's going on in the mountains. We've really just gotten here, and then we've traveled for work, and then we've just been working. So Alyssa and I are going to load the dogs back into the Model 3. We've got some aggressive Nokian Hakkapeliitta snow tires on it. We're going to go try and get ourselves stuck out in the wilderness as deep as we can go.
All right. Well, good luck with that. And I guess we'll see the results sometime on Out of Spec Motoring or Inside EV's YouTube channels or something.
Yeah, I don't really know for which one, but I do want to go back to Tom's X5 discussion for a half a second, because I had the X3 plug-in hybrid last week, and I was so disappointed with this vehicle. And I know Tom quite liked it, and I'm a huge BMW fan, but I really, for many reasons, wasn't pleased with this X3. Some things were good, some things were bad. But Tom, does your X5 have a charge port cover on it?
So you mean you open the flap and then does it? No, it doesn't. So just the flap, and then it's exposed, and then which I was shocked to see, because BMW always had those little things that you had to pop open and it would flip
You
open.
just ripped off. I ripped him off the i3, but same thing with the X3. So I wonder if this is a new change for BMW, that they're getting rid of these silly things. Because with a plug-in hybrid, if you're you or me, we're constantly getting home, plugging them in. I could only get 10 miles of range out of this X3, by the way, driving around the city. It was really bad. It was also cold outside. And constantly plugging and unplugging. And these little flap things are so silly. So I'm pleased, as a positive note for BMW, that they've gotten rid of that unnecessary component.
And one thing I'm going to follow up to Kyle following up. One of the points that I want to make is Kyle, in my opinion, isn't the right person to comment on the X3 and the X5 plug-in hybrids. Give him the Corvettes, give him all the performance cars, because that's what Kyle is hardwired to be concerned with, is performance and running through the gears and hammer it in the turns. These plug-in, the X3 and X5 plug-in hybrids from BMW, they're soccer moms driving them around, hauling the kids around. They're not out there, on the track going nuts like Kyle's, complaining that the electric motor is integrated into the 8-speed transmission. So
that's wrong. No matter who you are, that's wrong.
So, yeah, I had to expose his bias, because the fact of the matter is, he's not capable of looking at a vehicle from the point of view of
that's not true. That's not true. I drove it. I drove it into the city.
Yeah, of course you did. And you were sliding sideways on the turns, and launching at every red light, and people were looking at you like, "What the hell is driving a BMW SUV?" And he wants to drag race me.
A couple launches may have happened. That's true.
Understand, there's bias coming in with this. I'm the elder statesman. I try to be fair and understand what is this vehicle designed to do, and does it do that well. Kyle looks at every car like a track car. And if
that's not true. I did drive this car, and I did a test. I drove it very normally, where you can program in the navigation where you want to go. I did a 150-mile road trip into Denver and back, and I drove it completely like a normal, sane person. And I let the car figure out when it wanted to use electricity and when it wanted to use gas. And it was flawless at that. As soon as I got on the on-ramp to the highway, boom, combustion engine's on. As soon as I got off the highway, boom, we're back to electric. I thought that was pretty neat. But
so it works
Tom,
well.
You're right.
It works well what it does.
Yeah, I do like performance, but I also have a sensible thing, and I didn't like the X3 for sensible things. It bruised me, and the steering wheel was way too thick.
All right. Okay. So let's move on, because we got a lot of stuff we got to cover real quick. Okay. So in case you missed it, last Saturday, the 9th, was NIO Day. And the Chinese automaker had a big event in Chengdu. They have a big stadium, and it was full of fans, owners, interested people. I don't know. They're there. They're excited. It was a huge thing. It's like 3 hours and something long. And there's like music performances of all different sorts, and you have to see it. I mean, yeah, at least once anyway. It is long though. So anyway, but product-wise, the big news here was the reveal of the ET7, the company's flagship to be. It's a full-size sedan, and based on the ET preview concept from 2019, its first deliveries are planned for the first quarter of 2022, so likely a bit more than a year from now. For starters, it will be available with a 70 or a 100 kilowatt-hour battery, with a 150 kilowatt-hour battery made with solid-state cells, supposedly going to be available by the end of the year or the end of 2022. So, and a bit more on that later. The range figures for the different trim levels use the NEDC test, which is like an old test from, I'm not even sure if that's from America or England, but it's old and it's wildly optimistic. But anyway, so the 70 kilowatt hour ET7 is said to go 311 miles on a charge. The 100 kilowatt hour version, 435 miles. And the eventual 150 kilowatt hour pack is supposed to offer 620 miles of range, or 1,000 kilometers. Without doing the math, I'm going to say that's more like 500 miles really, but who knows, either until customers get it or the government tells automakers to use a more realistic range test, so people won't be disappointed by the actual results they get. But performance-wise, we're looking at the 3.9 seconds, 0 to 60. It's a dual motor all-wheel drive setup, and it puts out 480 kilowatts or 644 horsepower with 627 pound-feet of torque. So that's plenty of power. Tom, you know NIO pretty well. What do you think of this car, and how significant is it for the company?
Yeah, so I do know NIO well. I've gone over and visited them a few times. I've driven their vehicles. I've used their battery swap stations, and I've it's no surprise to the followers here. I'm a big NIO fan, and I like this vehicle. I can't wait to see when NIO decides to really go global, because I fully expect them to. And the vehicles that they've been making, in my opinion, can compete on the world stage. I don't expect this to be any different. They're a premium brand. The fit and finish on the inside is pretty much the quality of what you'd consider from like an Audi or a Lexus. Top quality stuff. The vehicles drive great. And this new ET7, I think, fits perfectly into their product planning. They've got the ES6 and the ES8, which are mid-size and large SUVs. Then they have the EC7, EC6, which is the coupe version of the ES6, and that's kind of like a sportback version. Is what I meant. This fits into their product planning well, and I can't wait to drive one. Hopefully, we'll be able to do so at some point in 2021. But I like everything NIO's been doing, and they had a great NIO day. I think we had some good news about the batteries, about the new battery swaps, and the introduction of this car. The only disappointing thing is we've got to wait, I think, a full year before this is going to be available. I don't think it's going to be available till sometime in the first quarter of 2022, I think they said. So that's a little disappointing, but good on NIO. Keep doing what you're doing, because NIO is going to be a global force, I believe, in 4 or 5 years.
So because we're live today, someone just asked, NIO or Lucid, which would you choose? Lucid Air over this?
Well, I've sat in and touched the Lucid Air, and it's getting ready to launch. So I might have to choose that, only because I've been in the vehicle, I've used the user interface and everything. But that NIO ET7 looks pretty damn sexy, doesn't it? Yeah. Especially in that version of the interior there. I mean, that looks pretty good. But so does Lucid. So that's let somebody give me that choice, and then I'll decide. I'd like to have both of them in my garage. I don't think you could lose with either one.
That center screen looks a little small, actually. Kind of looking at it, I'm thinking, that could be wider. It's almost square. Anyway,
probably I don't think it's smaller than the Lucids. The Lucids folds up into the dashboard, which is pretty cool. Right, that's true. So we had the prices up there a little while ago, and those are kind of interesting because they give a price like we'll just talk about the U.S. equivalent prices, $69,000. Let's round it off, $69,000 to buy the 70 kilowatt hour, the cheap version straight. Gary Clark loves the Air. That's cool. But if you want to buy, you can also spend like $11,000 less, or approximately $58,000, but then have to pay $151 per month for the battery under a battery as a service sort of arrangement. Do you know if both of those include battery swapping? Yeah, they include battery swapping. All NIO customers have unlimited use for no cost to swap their battery as many times as they want. Okay. Yeah, Kyle, what do you think about this battery as a service pricing?
The pricing, I think, is very reasonable, actually. Also, a couple concerns, but here's the thing I'm most interested about. I was talking to some NIO folks yesterday, and they said that it's faster to go between Beijing and Shanghai by 2.5 hours in a NIO versus a Model 3, because the Model 3 has to stop and charge and then do its whole thing. Right. Now, I'm not sure if they tested with someone driving a Model 3 that can optimize as well as we can, but later this year, we're going to be doing a race between Shanghai and Beijing, in a Tesla versus a NIO with battery swapping and the Tesla supercharging, and we'll see which can actually get there faster. I bet the NIO will still win. It'll be kind of interesting. Battery swap, to me, I've been really kind of negative on it here in the US, but I think it works really well in China. And I can't wait to experience this. I would just sit there and swap until I get the healthiest battery. And then, there's so many things you can do. But the pricing is right on point. I mean, I'm trying to think, like when the smart car launched in 2013, the smart electric here in the US, I think the battery was roughly $150 a month or so for you rent the battery. And that was like a 15 kilowatt hour pack. And here we're talking triple digits. I mean, I think it's a steal.
Let me follow up a little bit on battery swap. So the way it works there, let's say you bought this with the 70 kilowatt hour battery and you go to a battery swap station, you can get the 100 or the 150 kilowatt hour battery if you'd like, but then you have to pay for it. It's free if you swap it with the same battery that you have, or a smaller one, I guess. If you had the 100 kilowatt, they wouldn't charge if you asked for 70. I don't know why you would, but maybe there were no 100 available at the swap station for whatever. I don't know how logistically, once they start having 2 or 3 different size packs, I mean, I think they might almost, once the 150 kilowatt hour battery pack's available, they might just discontinue the 70 kilowatt hour pack because, these swap stations can only hold 13 battery packs. Yeah. So let's imagine if you had 3 different versions, now you can only have 4 of each. And if somebody came in, you could run out. So, they might end up just dropping the smallest pack, but you can get, if you're on a long trip, you can rent the larger pack and you pay a little bit extra until you return it and swap it back for the size pack that you have. And there's one more thing I'm going to qualify with Kyle. Kyle talked about a race between Shanghai and Beijing, and I might be a part of that. I will be obeying all of the speed limits. I want to make that statement right now. This isn't the cannonball run we're talking about. That Kyle just set the record 3 weeks ago for the fastest cannonball run from New York City to LA. New York City to LA is not Shanghai to Beijing. That NIO autopilot or a NIO autonomous driving pilot will be set to the speed limit. And if I lose because of that, that's fine. I won't end up in a Chinese jail somewhere. I promise.
We're not messing with Chinese jails and law here. It is a race of charging infrastructure, so we must drive the same speed. It's the only way to make it fair.
That's good. And actually, while we're just talking about that, I think that's how future cannonballs should go here too. I know maybe Kyle might disagree with that.
Oh, safety Nancy coming in here, everyone. Hold on.
Yeah, I know. But because like the gas version, it's ridiculous now. You have to 150 miles an hour across, it's just
150 is the slowest you can go in a gas car.
Right. It's that.
But actually,
eventually electric would be there too if things keep improving.
It will be.
But really, the what we really want to know about that whole exercise is the charging thing. How long you have to spend charging versus driving.
Well, there's another challenge, which is the shortest time charging across the country. We can make up our own challenges, but that's not as sexy as you went from New York to LA faster than anyone before. So there will always be how fast can you get across the country. Now, I'm not saying I will ever do another one because, at this point, the speeds are getting up there and I just wanted to tell the CCS story, but the shortest time charging across the country is just going to be the Aptera when that comes out. You're going to charge 3 times for like 30 minutes a piece, and that's it. And you can set that record quite easily in a year from now.
Right. Hey, so as really quick, sticking with these the swap stations, the NIO swap stations, they've as part of the NIO, the announcements, and we have a few other NIO things to talk about here real quick. They have a power swap station 2.0 now, and so that, like Tom was saying, those take 13 battery packs and they have an empty slot, so it's 3 times faster than 1.0. That's up to 312 automatic swaps a day. So that's about 400 or 4.6 minutes apiece. The updated plan is to install in China a network of 500 stations by the end of 2021. The progress in this is slower than initially anticipated. In 2017, the company had said they had hoped to install 1,100 stations in a few years. So, it's not going quite as quickly as they had originally imagined, but that's what it is now. That's not too bad. But see, a little efficiency for 150 kilowatt hour pack battery swapping seems ideal. With today's charging times, this probably won't be necessary in 510D, right? So yeah, I too think battery swap is great for China now, but in the future, it may not be, right? It's
Well,
an impermanent technology, maybe.
the thing we have to remember in China, unlike the US and Europe, very few people have control over their own electricity, like in a private residence. Most of the people live in these giant apartment complexes, and there's hundreds and hundreds of people, and they don't all have a parking spot, let alone the ability to charge overnight. So public infrastructure is paramount in China. So they do have DC fast chargers, which, by the way, in China they're all called superchargers. It's not Tesla. It doesn't have like the only superchargers. All DC fast chargers are called superchargers. So if you ever hear somebody talking about a supercharger in China, it's just a regular DC fast charger. But the battery swaps work there because it's so the hesitation to go to electric is really, it's not even range anxiety. It's charging anxiety with a lot of the Chinese people, and giving them this option where, look, in 5 minutes you can swap. That removed a huge barrier. And I talked to the people in China about this. I talked to so many NIO customers. Almost all of them said, literally, they would not have bought the vehicle if it wasn't for battery swap. It's the reason why they bought it. And it works. I did it twice. I had an ES8 for a week that I drove, and I used the battery swap twice. It took about 6 minutes to swap. This new charging is even quicker. And one thing I want to point out also, if Martin can go back to the picture of those battery swap stations, I want to point out these are very easy to set up because they're just drop and plug in, believe it or not. These are the NIO battery swap stations. You can see how it's just kind of resting on, it's not a permanent structure. So NIO puts them in different areas, and if they're not getting the utilization that they think it should in that area, they just pick the thing up and put it somewhere else. So that's one thing that's really cool about these. They're not like permanent concrete structures. They come in, they get set up in like a day. The biggest issue is the interconnection with the Chinese grid. But these things can be moved around, which I thought was a really cool, a really cool aspect of them.
That is cool. And you know what else is cool? The 150 kilowatt hour battery coming for NIO in late 2022 is a solid state battery, they say. That was like yeah. Okay. So the this will be maybe the first solid state battery coming, but we've heard promises of solid state before from like Fisker for instance, and that didn't happen. And but maybe this time Lucy won't take the football away, and we'll get it. Apparently, it has a energy density of 360 watt hours per kilogram, which is really good. I don't know what today's number is, like 280 that we're seeing in cars around the neighborhood of that. So 360 is a significant improvement, and it's close to what I think Tesla and GM, LG are looking at 400, but only by maybe 2024, 25 or something. So 360, like by the end of next year, would be great. Apparently, it's got several technologies. And it includes like nickel ultra-rich cathodes, silicon, maybe carbide composite anode. Batteries are promised to offer good battery life with higher charging efficiency, but the details weren't provided. So the supplier of the solid-state battery was originally thought to be coming from CATL, the CATL, which supplies Tesla and a number of other companies, but now it seems like it's possibly coming from this new company called Solid State Lion, or I don't know if that's lion like raw lion or lion as in lithium ion. But anyway, so this is according to a Chinese auto industry commentator on Twitter by the name of Moneyball. He's worth following if you're on Twitter. It is connected, this Solid State Lion, to the Institute of Physics at the Chinese Academy of Science, which granted it core intellectual property rights of solid-state batteries in 2017. So I guess this tech was developed at a university, and now a company has it, and maybe NIO will have it. Anybody want to pour water on that, Martin?
Well,
You're looking skeptical?
A few years ago, we were desperate for new battery breakthroughs and technology. The price was coming down pretty quickly. It has done over the last 10 years for lithium-ion batteries. But only a few years ago, there was, we were looking at tech to kind of rescue us and charge faster. But if you look at how quick the latest Teslas charge and Porsche Taycans, we're going to talk about the Hyundai in a minute with an 800-volt pack. And I was kind of running the numbers on how quickly they say that is going to charge, and that's, I'm guessing, is between 2 and 250 kilowatts. And, there's consortiums working on commercial charging up to 2 megawatts of power. So it's less of a big deal in my mind than it used to be. It used to be a bit like, hydrogen is now. People still say, oh, well, when hydrogen arrives, we're all going to be flying around the world, zero emissions, now cars and boats and everything. And it's always 5 years away. And that was solid state batteries. And solid state actually means many different things as well. So I'm less bothered about, I just want to, get in a car and have great specs. And I'm less worried now, actually, about how we achieve that, because lithium-ion technology has moved on so far. There are concerns. I'm not ignoring them. We need to get cobalt out of batteries. That is happening. And we're still seeing, although the price isn't coming down as dramatically as it has done over the last 10 years, it is still incrementally stepping down, if you look at the latest research. It's actually the developments in energy density, which is still going up. And so, interesting, it's no longer the magic bullet.
Nice points. I'm right there with you. But still, what was it? 365 watt hours per kilogram. That's or 360. I've lost my place.
Well, I wouldn't say no,
Right.
Wouldn't say no. And also, fast charging and all that kind of stuff means that we can have smaller batteries, and that means they weigh less, and that means we can have much more sensible cars. We're not talking about 2.5, 3 ton vehicles that we're driving around and sitting with 100 kilowatt hours on your driveway.
Right.
My car hasn't moved for 2 days. Okay, we're in lockdown. This is atypical at the moment, but still, it's pointless having a car that is not fit for use case. And until now, we've kind of had to cover all bases. So we need EVs that can possibly take us on a long journey, but are mostly just being used to do errands. And so, it makes sense that we can try and focus a little bit more on, actually, if we can improve the scale of these batteries to make them more affordable and put them into cars that are costing 15 or 20,000, but have a 30 or 40 kilowatt hour pack, because they're more efficient, they charge very quick. And then if you are doing a long journey, if you do 3 or 4 long journeys a year, but it charges quickly and the infrastructure is there, well, it's an efficiency thing. It's the impact that we put on the planet thing. So I'm not pouring cold water on. It's a good development.
Smaller batteries are great, lighter batteries, because besides all that, it's more efficient and also better handling. If you're like a performance enthusiast, it's the least weight, the better. So that's something to look forward to. So moving on from the NIO Day. I should probably mention too that the NIO ET7, they had a ton of autonomous functionality with it as well. Supposedly we'll see how that works out in the real world, but it has, it's got 33 different sensing units on it, 11 8 megapixel high resolution cameras, 1 ultra long range high resolution LiDAR, 5 millimeter wave radar, 12 ultrasonic sensors, 2 high precision positioning units, V2X and ADMs. And I think it's got some special chips as well. There's 4 NVIDIA Orin total computing power of 1016 TOPS, which I forget exactly what that stands for at the moment, but tops.
That's tera operations per second.
Thank you.
And to compare it to what Tesla has, they, as you mentioned, the 4 NVIDIA Orin chips can process 1016 tera operations per second. Tesla has 2 full self-driving chips, and they can process 144 tera operations per second. So the NIO system will have 7 times the computing power of what Tesla's using right now. I'm not saying it's going to be a better system, but the fact is it will have 7 times the computing power. And the cameras, as you mentioned, it has 11 8 megapixel cameras. Tesla uses 8 1.2 megapixel cameras. So
Right.
think of that step up in technology between the two. Now you've got to put it all together, write the software, and make it work, which
Right.
is a totally different thing we're talking about. But the hardware itself seems to be vastly superior in what NIO's going to be putting out.
Right. Except like you need that kind of processing power with like that much, that higher resolution of cameras. The more resolution you have in your cameras, the more processing power you're going to need as well, right? So yeah, it's going to be interesting. It seems, pardon?
It seems less efficient than Tesla's approach. Not to say Tesla's approach is right. I'm probably the most critical, but I think 7 times more power just seems to me like they're not optimizing as well as they should be.
Right. Yeah. I wouldn't judge any of this until they're actually in vehicles on the road, and we can actually judge how they work in real life. Because it's okay. So
talking of very quickly, talking of battery swapping, a really common thing that I see, and I saw in the comments from Sumil here, who says, I'm hesitant to swap out my well-maintained battery for one that's been driven aggressively and discharged. Sumil, it's not your battery. So
right.
It's not necessarily thinking about, I'm buying a car and it sits on my driveway and I've looked after and I've slow charged that battery. If you are subscribing to their battery as a service, as I do with Renault, so I lease my battery. So if it goes wrong, they put a new one in. It's the only expensive bit of the car, and I pay them £59 a month for my lease. It's slightly more expensive for NIO. It's a much bigger battery. But you need to get away from... It's the difference between going on eBay and buying a phone, I guess, and then just doing a contract with a mobile provider that you pay an increased amount for monthly, but you get a new phone every 2 years. Those contracts exist, and so you need to think about it as not really being yours so much as you are subscribing to a service like you do with software. I go back to when you used to buy a CD-ROM in PC shops, and that was yours, right? And now surely everything we do is a subscription. So it's a different mindset, and I know why people can't get their head around it, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but for the people that it works for, it works very well.
Right.
And even if you don't... Even if you don't subscribe to the battery as a service and you buy your NIO, and now you feel protective about the battery, if you swap it and you get a battery that doesn't seem to be performing well, you just swap it out again.
Yeah,
just,
right.
It's unlimited. So if you get a battery this time and instead of having 300 miles of range, when it's fully charged, you look at it, it says 240. You know what? You next time you're near the battery swap, you swap it out. And now this one says 290 or 280. It really doesn't matter. I think it's a good system for China. I'm not saying that that's what we're going to transition to here in the US and Europe. Don't get me wrong. It works there very well. I don't think we're going to be doing that here in the West.
NIO also tests the batteries when they come out. So when a pack comes out, and if it has hit, I don't know, 89% state of health, they'll take it out of rotation, or maybe they'll go back and do some maintenance on it and fix a faulty cell. So also, that the pack coming into your car has been tested, meets a certain threshold, it is of a certain quality. You're not going to get one put in your car that is faulty because they are only putting the packs in that have met those tests, and then they can do maintenance on the ones they pull out. So there are some checks and balances in there as well.
All right.
Absolutely.
Well, don't worry, drive happy. So NIO had his big NIO day, but this week is CES, the Consumer Electronics Show. This year we're not all in Las Vegas, unfortunately, because that was so great last year. But so everyone's doing like virtual presentations, and GM, General Motors, had a pretty big one. But before we get in any of that, really. A little headline came out this morning on Motor One, and I'm sure we'll have that on Inside EVs as well, that GM is working on numerous electric Corvette SUV concept designs report. And so as part of this the CES presentation, General Motors had this one shot of not all of it, but a bunch of its future electric vehicles in the background behind the presenter. And you could see like the Hummer was front stage and center, but in the back there were some Buicks, and people had confused the Buicks for possibly being this like Corvette SUV, which I don't know. So this is just like right out of the old Ford Mustang Mach-E playbook, right? Who wants to talk about this?
Yeah, I will talk about this because I am so torn on these nameplates being used. Now, this is pure speculation. We haven't heard anything from GM. We don't know what they're going to call it.
Sure.
But we do know up to this point, GM has failed at making anything compelling or interesting in the lineup for the last 5 years. So they really are getting just kicked by Ford in every category. Ford has the Bronco, right? Really awesome off-roading SUV. GM came out with a Blazer, which is like now a mom car, but they had such an opportunity to make something cool. And so GM really needs something to invigorate their fan base because Ford is just kicking it out of the park. And maybe this is what they're betting on. Look, I have the new Corvette this week. So I've been very pleased with it. It's an okay performance car. This is the base one, of course. We haven't seen the Z06 or ZR1 come out, but the electric potential is certainly there. Now, I've driven Mustang Mach-E. Tom spent time with Mustang Mach-E, and I'm in the camp that this is okay because Mustang is now a brand that has multiple vehicles inside of it. You can still get your V8 manual rear-wheel drive burnout machine, which I love so much, and you can get your family SUV to put your bikes in the back, which I also love so much. So I get the Mustang thing. I don't see why it wouldn't work for the Corvette thing. It certainly would cause a lot of stir and drama, but I'm not against it.
Yeah, I mean, Ferrari has the Purosangue SUV coming out. So if Ferrari can do an SUV, GM can make an SUV Corvette, I think, if that works out. Because the Corvette is like the same thing, like you said, with Mustang. Like GM really hasn't had like a big vehicle like the Bronco was huge for Ford. Now but they did the Corvette. There was a lot of interest actually because I get the monitor what's going on over at Motor One too, and like last year the Corvette coming, it was a huge driver of traffic. There was a lot of interest, so that could be the kind of steps that GM needs to take to really come up with a vehicle that draws people in and gets their attention. And actually though, because there's been a lot of skepticism about GM's electrification program, even though they're doing all the things, making budgets and showing you concepts and telling you about plans, there's still been a lot of skepticism because they still have a full lineup of gas internal combustion vehicles. So and they have a history, of course. So there's been some skepticism, but this week with all those cars in the lineup, people are finally kind of coming around to the idea that GM is electrifying, and with all the electric vehicle stocks have really gone up in the last like a month or two. There's been a lot of stock market interest in them, and that's that's impacting GM now.
It sounds like GM is saying, "Look at me, just pretend we're the new Tesla." Right. But they have nothing to back it up. They have a flying Cadillac. How cool is that? But can you buy it now? No. Is there anything you can buy in the next 3 to 6 months? No. So it doesn't seem real to me until I can go to a dealer and buy one. It's all vaporware. I hate to be that guy because it is a pretty convincing argument. And have you seen the new logo? This is the biggest thing ever. So, it's just seems kind of silly to me.
Okay. So let's look at some of the different things they did show. So they were talking about the Bolt EUV coming. That's like the slightly larger Bolt, and there's not really a whole lot to say about it because it's just this like one teaser image. But it was interesting that the range on the display here shows 235 miles, which is right around what the Bolt does, I think, right? Something close to that.
But Bolt is more than that. Bolt is 260 something, and I think in our 70 mile per hour test we've done 240 miles. Nearest makes no difference at 70 on the highway.
Okay.
Yeah, the Bolt's EPA rating is 259.
There you go. So this was showing 235 miles at 80 or 85% charge. So I guess that's not too out of line with what the Bolt EV does. So okay, it's not so exciting. Let's move along.
Yeah, it's not pushing the bar forwards.
Okay, so we also
I will say what I find interesting is okay. On the UI there they are putting some extra information on the GOM and telling people, is that how I'm reading it right? That if you absolutely drive efficiently, you might get that range out of 235. Am I reading that correct?
Yeah, but my Spark does that now though. It gives a minimum maximum range. Yeah,
I've not seen that on any.
Chevys have done that forever. Yeah,
amazing. Well, that's. I mean, it's no change then. But so this is 275. If you think it's 80 odd percent, 82%. It'd be 275 at full. So that doesn't
You'd have to
sound
really
like
baby
a
it to
big-
get that.
For current Bolt, but it has
Yeah.
Super Cruise, which is nice.
Yeah.
It's what's
Yeah.
so funny is Super Cruise came out with Cadillac on one model, I think the CT6, and then they canceled the model. So they had Super Cruise, but you couldn't buy it on a new car. It's such a GM thing to do.
GM. Yeah. I love GM, but man, yeah, things like that. It's just, I mean, stuff like that happens in a big company. So many different people, setting different agendas. But yeah, so yeah, and as we said, the EUV will have Super Cruise, and if you could see that little blue line at the top of the steering wheel in that last image there, that's the Super Cruise kind of light telling you what's going on with the system. Yeah, Bill B tells us Super Cruise is included in the Bolt EUV. All right, so let's move on to something much cooler than the Bolt EUV. Cooler, a little less accessible too, because GM teased a bit the Cadillac Celestiq. That is their full-size luxury executive electric sedan thing. It's almost limo-like, because it's the thing is, I saw it in person at the EV Day last year, like a year ago, and it's huge. It's like a limo practically. I think there's a shot of the fascia in here somewhere, Martin. I don't know if you can get to that part or not. Yeah, you can see it down here. Yeah, you can see that. That's pretty much all we saw of it from the outside, and we could see like little bits of the inside. The roof is like you can adjust how translucent different sections of the roof are. It's like pretty out there stuff, and there's going to be handmade and super expensive. So, but it's just kind of nice to see that coming along. And there was a lot of skepticism about this car actually even making the market amongst some writers and things. So it will be interesting to see if it actually happens, because the inside, actually the screen on the inside is pillar to pillar in the front. So it's kind of nice. Anyone have any comments about this?
Lyric comes first. That's the one I'm more excited about, if I can possibly get excited about any of these cars. But yeah, Lyric coming first. Celestiq will be loaded with technology, handmade, like you say, very pricey. But is anyone going to want it? I don't know.
It's never worked for Cadillac before. What's that Pininfarina Cadillac that they sent off in the 80s for $100,000 that no one bought? It's just not.
Biazzo. Something like BR's bizarre.
Yeah, this is all bizarre. They need to work on making Cadillac a premium brand, focus on the Chinese market for them, but also make it attainable, because the only way Cadillac is going to succeed is China. In America, my generation, we do not care about Cadillac anymore. The Escalade isn't even cool because it's seen as like this big giant gas guzzler. Range Rovers are in, Rivians are in, Cadillac's out. China, though, Cadillac's in. So they need to focus on that market, and they need to sell cars a lot there.
I think they could possibly sell every one of these they make in China, because that, like the back seat and everything, it's really what the Chinese market likes. They like that huge back seat where you have a driver taking care of all that stuff, and you're just sitting back there and relaxing. You've got screens. It's really super luxury. Like, I don't know if anything really comes close to this. So they might have a big like a hit on their hands in like China, or if you're really like that exclusive kind of thing,
I could see that 100%. It could be like the Hongqi of American cars, because that's like the Chinese really stately vehicle. This could be like the one step down that more people could afford. Right.
So that's cool and all, but the more interesting thing that GM showed during its CES presentation is this whole BrightDrop concept, which is a family of vehicles. And like ecosystem of delivery vehicles. So basically, they've got the EV600, which is like a FedEx van, and they've teamed with FedEx actually for this. FedEx is going to be receiving these things this year. This may come out actually before the Hummer EV. It's built on the GMC or General Motors Ultium flexible architecture components, and also the Ultium battery. And yeah. This is a big deal. This could be like a good portion of the FedEx fleet eventually. I think 250 miles of range, slightly all the creature comforts that like a FedEx driver needs. yeah, I don't know. Tom, what do you think about this? We have a picture of the EV600 we can bring up.
So personally, I love it. And those who've been following the podcast here know that I'm really into electric delivery vans. I think that, and I'm just surprised we don't have them yet, but now we have companies like Rivian and Arrival, and Ford is going to be putting one out. I think what we're going to see, the proliferation of these are going to happen so quickly. It's going to like way outpace how we've seen electric vehicle adoption on the consumer market happen, where 10 years into it, we're at 2% adoption. I think once some of these vehicles start to becoming available, I think within 5 or 6 years, we're going to see like 75% of the vehicles on the road electric. It just makes so much sense where, these type of delivery vehicles, the fleet managers know exactly how far they're going to go. They're on specific routes 90% of the time. Yeah, there's some variation, but they have this all worked out. They know exactly what they cost to operate. Once these vans are available and they can save as much as the numbers we say, 50 to 60% over the lifetime of the vehicle. These manufacturers are not going to be able to make these things quick enough. And I'm so looking forward to see that, as somebody who goes to New York City a lot, I see all these trucks and delivery vans, diesel, just idling on the side of the roads as I drive by them. If you have your windows down, the fumes just fill your car. I can just imagine the streets lined with these electric delivery vehicles, silent, no fumes. I mean, just remove these from the city alone, and you'll make a dramatic improvement in air quality, even if the passenger vehicles didn't change. So, super psyched about this. I like this vehicle. I like what they're doing here with the racking system inside. But I'm more just excited the fact that looks like we're gonna have another option that's going to hit the market, that's going to help transition delivery to zero emission, which we desperately need to do as quickly as possible.
I got to say, I like the way the Rivian delivery van looks a little bit better. The Amazon Rivian Amazon, but I think this one, I'd rather have this one just because it has like a lower roof. The Rivian one's like a little tall for my taste. I don't think you really need all that height. It just, yeah. Maybe it's just because it has a big FedEx on the side of it. And I used to work for FedEx. I would drive like vans like this, drive like up to Albany, Georgia, and back at nighttime. And this would fill like the trucks that we've had before, electric delivery trucks. They didn't have the range to do the kind of work that I was doing with them at all. This, no problem. 250 miles. It's really takes all the guesswork out of it, because and for companies like FedEx, the company FedEx doesn't own these vans. These vans are all bought and owned by contractors. So one depot, like at the depot here in Tallahassee, we have like 2 or 3 guys that are subcontractors, and they all have different routes. And they have like a dozen or so trucks, and they could swap these trucks out for different routes. And before, if you had like a 100-mile FedEx truck, electric truck, it'd be stuck on 1 or 2 routes. So you lose a lot of flexibility with that. Now it doesn't really matter. Any truck can pull in back in anywhere, and they can go out and do whatever route they need to do. It's just great. Sorry to interrupt somebody.
No, I was just going to say, why make it so ugly? Like you had mentioned, the Rivian looks great.
Right.
You know what? It just looks old school.
It
And
does.
all the specs are awesome. It's all cool, but Rivian looks happy. The Rivian makes this awful pedestrian noise, though, we heard this week. Really unbelievably loud.
The space thing going on.
Yeah, I hope that's not a sign of things to come for these vans, because that's more noise pollution than them just idling. But other than that, I think that Rivian just looks futuristic and happy, and it's friendly. The other one just looks.
Yeah, they went for a really design, like a commercial look. Like I don't know why. We don't need like boring commercial looking vehicles. We like happy vehicles, like round eyes and.
Yeah, Honda E is so cool because of its styling. We need big Honda E delivery vans, and this is it, basically.
Actually, someone was commenting somewhere this week that the Honda E looks like the Rivian van looks like it birthed the Honda E. They do have like some of those little similarities with the round headlights and the soft lines and everything. Yeah, but that in there. And as part of the system too, they have these EP1. Right, exactly. They have the EP1, which is a little like in-wheel motor, like suitcase cargo carrying thing, and you could use those inside warehouses to bring packages to loading to the trucks. And they're working on some future vehicles. You can see here in the picture. They're working on some future vehicles where it looks like these things just roll right up into the truck, and the side of the truck just kind of folds back up with those inside, and off you go. It'd be interesting if they could make these also autonomous. I know inside like a FedEx warehouse, they do have like autonomous little carts taking things somewhere. They follow like the lines they have traced up for them. So it'd be nice if like these things did that as well. But let's move along because we're getting up close to the hour here. So let's talk about the most interesting crossover in the world right now. I am, of course, talking about the Hyundai Ioniq 5. The automaker released some teaser images that were on the Inside EV's news site on Wednesday. Of course, if you had come by the Inside EV's forum on Tuesday night, a member had posted them there first. So, come by the Inside EV's forum and check it out, guys. Especially if there's a vehicle that you're really excited about coming up, like the Ioniq 5. We have a few people that are very interested in that. So, people are posting about it when they can, when new bits come up. And let's take a look at that. So these shots are why I'm calling it the most interesting crossover in the world right now. They're shots of the front and the rear. They're a bit shadowy, but they show a style that's different from anything we've seen in a while. I think lots of sharp lines, like not many round edges. I've lightened up a few shots a bit. From the rear, it looks like nicely chunky. Yeah, Kyle, any thoughts on the looks here?
100% love it. I think it is so cool. Every single angle on this thing, all about it. It's neat. It's rad. It's like retro, but modern. It's all so awesome. I love the angular shape. It's kind of like the iX was trying to do this, the BMW iX, but it got it so wrong. This is really good.
Can you roll up just a little bit more there? Yes. So we can see. Look how wide those tires are. Is that looks like super wide tires?
Yeah, it's pre-production stuff. I think. I don't think that.
You don't think it's gonna be like that?
Size wheels and tires. This one's probably a maxed out one, but yeah, I think they'll have smaller. I wouldn't base the tire width off of these images. That's for sure.
Okay, it just looks nice and like chunky, like solid in from the back there with those big wide tires. Or they look wide to me. Maybe they won't be. It's so
similar to the 45 concept that we saw. And we've seen a run of this with EVs. When we first saw the Honda E concept, and we said, that's never going to look like that. And apart from the wheels, it did. And then we saw the 45 concept, and we thought, well, that's nice, Hyundai, but you're never going to make that car. And it's here. So it's not on sale. It's not on sale till the end of the year. It's revealed in February. So we'll get to see it in full next month. And then they do reckon shipping to customers by the end of the year, which is just exciting because it's just a fantastic bit of styling. And they've gone with the pixel headlights and the pixel tail lights and just other stuff, like they've put in the plug socket on the rear, so the plug socket under the rear seats. I'll try and find a photo of that, but there's a 3-pin plug or a 2-pin plug under the kind of opposite where the armrest, on the back of the armrest where the USBs would normally be on lots of cars, like opposite that, behind your calves maybe, is where there's a plug, and also on the front. So whether you're inside or outside, you can get 3.5 kilowatts pulled from the car, which is plenty, right? There's not many things in my house that take more than 3.5 kilowatts, right? So if I'm boiling the kettle and maybe heating the hot water, maybe the oven, no, they're all below 3.5 kilowatts. So finally, we are having massive batteries in our lives, in our cars, and now we can get energy out of them, not just for when we have a power cut, but I think we are going to have so many use cases for using our cars for a reasonable amount of power. Honda E does this as well, the little plug socket at the bottom of the dash, but this is great, 3.5 kilowatts to pull out of this. It's an 800-volt system. How fast it charges, they haven't told us. But what were the stats? You might have them on screen, Dom.
I've got something on that that's charging in a second here.
Yeah, go ahead.
So along with these images, they also put out like 4 videos. 3 of them are set about like ultimate camping or something outdoors, and basically they're just using camping as a setup to show you that it has this like plug with the 3.5 kilowatts of power available. So you could run a convection oven in one commercial, or you could run a half dozen or so speakers, stereo speakers. So yeah, it's just showing that off. And the fourth commercial is just talking about, it's like a race at how much you can get out of charging. So in 5 minutes, they got 60 miles, 100 kilometers out of charging it. And that's the, I assume that's on the 350 kilowatt charger, because that's a lot of miles in a very short period of time.
Yeah, I tried to work backwards on this, and I tried, because they were saying that it had a 0 to 80% charge time of 18 minutes or something.
It's fast.
So I was trying to work out that if it came with, say, 4 miles per kilowatt hour, which isn't particularly efficient, and their cars have been very efficient until now, but go with 4 miles per kilowatt hour, and if it's a 70 or a 75 kilowatt hour battery, that's got to be charging over the entire charge curve of 0 to 80, an average of 200, which is crazy high. So maybe give them some benefit of the doubt and lower it a bit. But that stat you just said, which is to get 60 miles or 100 Ks into the battery in 5 minutes, again, if it's around a 70 or 75 kilowatt hour battery, you are talking at a peak charge rate, obviously arriving at a low state of charge of not far off 240 or 250 kilowatts peak, which is, Taycan territory, which is also an 800 volt system. But
right.
I mean, that's so much technology for what is not going to be Taycan money. I can't wait.
Yeah.
I'm just frustrated that we're 10 months, 11 months away from driving them.
The one thing that I take away from this, looking beyond the specific vehicle, I've been trying to figure out who's going to be the next company to try to go all in electrification. I believe Volkswagen has already. I think they're the first established OEM to say, okay, we're pivoting. We're going to be an electric brand. No holds barred. The whole company's being transformed to be an electric brand. That maybe Dieselgate pushed that and accelerated those plans. Who knows? But for whatever reason, I wholeheartedly believe Volkswagen is all in on electrification. GM is telling us they're all in on electrification. Maybe they are, but we really don't have the proof's going to be in the pudding. I think Hyundai is that next company that is going to prove to us that they're all in on electrification. And the vehicles that we've been seeing like this, the technology that they're investing in the 800 volt systems, they get it. They understand these things have to recharge really quickly. They have power sockets, things that we're not getting in other vehicles. Kind of tells me that they might be the next company that we kind of declare, okay, they've made that pivot, and by the end of this decade, they're going to be an all electric brand. I hope that's the case, because what they've done so far is very impressive with the vehicles that they've done. The original Ioniq, the Kona, taking vehicles that weren't purpose built, they've made really good electric vehicles. And now with the new platform that they have, I think what we're going to see is really going to be impressive, and looking forward to getting behind the wheel, as Martin said, and checking these vehicles out. But I have high hopes for Hyundai. Right.
And Kia, if you go on Inside EVs today, Kia has its version of this. It's the first vehicle on the eGMP platform coming, and I think it was called the Kia LV or something. I'm not really sure, but yeah, keep an eye on that. It's still got some cladding on it. It's not going to be. It's probably, I believe, it's based on the Imagine concept, which is like a lot more round and organic design language than what we have on this the Ioniq 5. So that could be pretty interesting too. Something for everybody. So let's move along. We're over the hour already, so let's get this in here. So the Renault Group just streamed a 2.5-hour Renaulution conference, which presented its strategic plans going forward. They aim to shift Group Renault's strategy from volume to value, and they're also, electrification plays a huge role in this. It's announced it has a its performance sub-brand Alpine, or Alpine, if you're French, will have 3 EVs, a B segment hot hatch, a C segment crossover, and this is pretty interesting. So Renault is going to team with Lotus to develop a future electric A110. The 110 is like the sports car, the Alpine sports car. That's that's what it's known for. I think that might be the only car that actually under the Alpine name right now. But more is coming, and it's going to be an electric brand. So I suspect, I didn't say this, but I suspect it's going to be built on the bones of the Lotus Evija, which is kind of also interesting to point out that Lotus is now owned by Geely. So it's going to be like Geely and Renault sort of working together. And so that's might be interesting to see if that develops because, Geely has its own electric platforms coming. And yeah, it could be some cross-fertilization going on there. But anyway, so as part of all this plan, Renault has said it's bringing back its classic R4 and R5 vehicles as electric cars. So we didn't see anything with the R4 yet, which is kind of a neat-looking car from the 60s, maybe early 70s. I'm not sure when they discontinued it. But anyway, on the screen now, you can see, you may know the R5 as the car from back when Renault was sold in North America. But getting back to Renault proper, yes. So the R5, Renault 5 concept has been revealed. Here it is on the screen. It looks damn snazzy. Martin, you've seen this. Do you have some initial thoughts?
Yes. They're not calling this the replacement to the Zoe, which is just dominating in Europe right now.
Right.
But it could well be the replacement of the Zoe. It's a prototype, but it's a confirmed prototype. So it's not a concept car that's never going to arrive. So we know this car is coming, but we don't know when. And, again, I'm really excited about cars like this because Renault have said their future small cars are going to exploit the LFP battery technology, which is already going in the smaller Teslas made in China. And again, it's a very stable technology. It's cheaper. It's improving in energy density as well. So again, if we can get some EVs on the market at really, really attractive prices, price parity with combustion cars, then why wouldn't you drive one of these? If they can allow their designers that freedom to go and have fun like this just looks cool, but also decent range. So a small car like this with 200 miles range, like the Zoe, or 250. And as long as it charges quick enough, like I say, you can do the occasional road trip in this. We just need so many more cars like this. I'm fascinated as to whether they would sell a car like this in the US or not. But the Zoe over here is just absolutely, it's been around for a long time. It's maybe, I forget how many years, but long in the tooth. They keep reviving it, and I own the middle generation one, and absolutely love it because it does everything I want for absolutely no money to buy. So this is so cool. I love the fact that Renault are doing this. I love the fact that these legacy car makers, I hate the word legacy because it's really derogatory in a way, isn't it? But these car makers that have got histories, I think, are starting to realize, hang on, there's startups coming. I mean, Tesla is a startup, if you want to call it that, but certainly, Lucid and Chinese names are going to be new to Western buyers. So in their mind, they're startups. I think a lot of these companies are starting to realize, hang on a minute, if we lean on our heritage, we're going to navigate this journey in a way that creates emotion, because there is there is a little emotion lacking in selling electric cars in terms of the noise and the bluster and all that kind of stuff. So I think actually if you lean on that legacy, and if you look at these cars that have been icons and actually try and create a future classic, like I think the Honda E is going to be a future classic, and the Fiat 500 is a classic car. This could be a future classic as well. The Mini, not so much, because they didn't really do much with the electric Mini. It's sort of internally, externally, really, but still a very, very solid car. But those are more premium. So the Fiat and the Honda and the Mini here, they're around 30 grand. But then you've got the next load of cars down. So you've got like the Peugeot E208s and the Renault Zoes. And again, if this can fit into that, and it's a Renault, so surely it will. If they can fit that into that next price bracket down, I think it'd be very, very popular. And I think lots of people will have that emotional connection that you don't get with a startup. And in many ways, those car companies, and I call them legacy, but I don't mean it in a bad way, have been caught with their trousers around their ankles because they thought that they had it all their own way. Like, we're here, we know how to make cars, we've been doing it 100 years. What are these upstarts know, and lots of companies have come with really great technology and are making names for themselves. So I love this.
Yeah, but it's the first Renault that I've seen that makes me wish that the alliance would get its act together and sell this like in North America as a Nissan. If they don't actually bring the whole Renault brand over, I don't know if Renault has the appeal here as to make it as a going concern in the U.S. market, but it would be with the Nissan badge on that. I don't know. I guess it's not quite the same because like you say, it's trading on the emotion of the older model, but cars are an emotional purchase for many.
I think it looks cool, Dom, but I don't foresee something like this coming to the U.S. Unfortunately, we just do not buy small hatchbacks anymore. I don't know why, because I personally I drove small hatchbacks my whole life. I love tooling around a little hot hatch, but it's not what the market wants, and I would be shocked if some iteration of this ended up over here personally. I think it's unfortunate because it's cool. I'm not taking away anything. I think everything Martin said was right on, and hopefully that this will be in the price range and fit into the segment like Martin said. But it's a different market here in the U.S., and I just don't see us getting these little cars, like for the same reason Volkswagen decided not to bring the ID3 here.
Sure, good points.
Yeah,
All
I don't
right.
know if it's still the case, but the last I read, Renault had said they're going back to the US market in 2023. So I don't know what the latest is with that story and what they have in their lineup that you would want to buy.
Right.
But
I mean,
hope
well,
it was this because it's cool.
Right. The 5, looks good, and they also had that little Twizy thing on the stage there. I don't know if that. I mean, depending on what kind of performance, it has windows this time. That's
this time.
It's called the Easy One prototype. It's very Twizy-like, except with actual windows, and it's part of the new Mobilize mobility brand for Renault. And you'll probably see it'll work together. I see the mobility brand. It'll work to develop vehicle hardware, software, other services, including car charging, financing, subscriptions. It's a 95% recyclable, and it's made out of 50% recycled materials. Yeah, it's
use case.
I like the idea of buying them around little tiny things like that. Like I said, I've like the Spark EV, which is like a small hatchback, and small cars are kind of fun.
I'll quickly say, and I mean this with love, is that they've decided to rename the Renault F1 team the Alpine team because they want to relaunch the brand and kind of reignite it. But at this day, they also made a really big point about Alpine is their electric future. And so they spent so long telling us about how Alpine is their new electric kind of figurehead in the way that Audi's going to be the figurehead electric for VW. And then because they've spent so much money on Formula One, and because these big companies are going to have all these departments saying, well, look, we've got to get our return on being in Formula One. It's a marketing exercise. So they had this Formula One car on stage, and everyone's like, this is our electric future. Nobody look at the car that burns fossils every weekend to race around a track. Just look at our electric ones, but please look at our Formula One car because it's cost us a lot of money. So that was the only weirdness of the whole presentation, which is not even a big deal, but I found it funny.
An Alpine Formula E team probably would make more sense.
Well, yeah, exactly. But you can see why people go racing in all forms of racing as a marketing exercise.
Right.
So they've got to
Formula
do
One's
something.
Huge.
Yeah, so they've got to do something with the car, and they're like, "We'll put it on stage, but nobody talk about it."
All right. So we should close up here pretty soon, but I just had a couple things I wanted to mention. The Sony Vision S, which we saw debut last year at CES, and which Sony says they're not going to build or won't say anything about it. But the Magna, actually, it's an exercise with Magna somehow. Magna Steer in Austria. It's been spotted on the road testing in Austria. So something's still going on with that. So something to keep your eye out for. And Lordstown Endurance pre-order surpassed 100,000, which kind of blew my mind. And, takes them from...
So one person ordered 100,000 of them.
No, I think it's a bunch of orders. They had a bunch of small orders, and then I'm not sure they must have got a big order. I didn't delve deeply into this, but I do think it takes them from being a bit of an oddity to a possible contender. The front end is still
I'm excited to see how many of these reservations turn into orders. I worry Rivian is going to face this problem. I think Volkswagen ID4 as well. They're like, oh, by the way, we secretly have first edition still available. If you really want one, just send us an email because people aren't going to take delivery. So I guess we'll have to look, but we'll keep track of the reservation numbers now, and then the actual order numbers. And I imagine it'll be less than a 20% take rate on most of these cars. I think the whole reservation process is silly, if you ask me. But yeah, I'm excited to see what happens.
These are not big deposits that they're putting down. It's not like they're putting down, $1,000 deposit for every vehicle. So
are they putting down anything? Are these just MOUs, memorandum of understandings, where a company says, "Oh yeah, I'll buy 10,000 of them.
Right.
I'm not going to give you any money, but if you produce that, we'll probably buy 10,000 of those." So it's tough to say. It's good. It's positive news. Hopefully, there is a tremendous amount of interest in this. But it's tough to look at that 100,000 number and give it much credibility, in my opinion.
I think those are mostly commercial orders, so I give them more credibility than like $100 deposit orders from regular consumers. Because like a company has to put that budget aside for this. It's part of their whole planning, like a few years ahead. So if they
it's good PR on both sides. The company wants to look like they're going electric and not have to spend any money to do it. So they're going to reserve a truck that's far out in the future. And the company that's maybe going to build a truck far out in the future, it says, yeah, great, we need that too. I don't think any of it's real. We'll see.
If we saw commercials for companies, talking about their new Lordstown fleet arriving, then maybe, but I haven't seen anything like that. I haven't seen the companies touting their new electric fleet coming.
But the US Postal Service contract was kicked down the road a couple of times last year because of COVID. And as far as I know, it hasn't been awarded yet. And Lordstown are one of the companies bidding for the USPS contract to turn all of their fleet electric. Right. And these kind of headlines don't hurt reputation or perception, is what I'll say. I'm sure that they are real reservations.
I think Lordstown has some, a lot of political connections in the outgoing administration. So it'll be interesting to see how they transition to this new administration, to see if they can, if their government contacts were kind of giving them, life. We'll see if that goes away or not. Anyway, that brings us to the end of our show. I'd like to thank you all for joining us live. Or if you're watching this afterwards, that's great too. We'll take what we can get. If you have any comments about the topics on today's show, you can comment on the Inside EVs podcast post, the YouTube comment section, of course, and on the Inside EVs forum podcast thread. We have a thread on the Inside EVs forum where we keep all the episodes in order, and you can comment on each episode as they come out. Don't forget, you can find and follow our panelists on Twitter. Tom Maloney is at Tomolog. Martin Lee is at EV News Daily. Wait for it to pop up on the screen. Kyle Connor is at Out of Spec. And I'm at Dominic_Y. We'll see you all again next week. Click subscribe and tap that bell icon for notifications. Ciao.